Alright, finally getting around to get this video out to you. This is a video on Maverick Pay. I'm actually going to break it into two videos. This first one is going to be kind of a line-by-line breakdown of what Maverick pays their drivers. I'm going to be focusing on new drivers with no experience. So the first video is going to be looking at each individual. There's lots of different types of pay: ancillary pay, base pay, performance pay, and just kind of sussing out what you should be looking at when you're comparing companies. And in the second video, I'm going to give you something that I really wish I had when I was looking as well, which is an inside look at what an actual driver is actually making. So I'm going to show you all my pay stubs. It's a little slideshow at the end of the video that's got 2 pay stubs per slide. Just kind of flash through them a couple seconds per slide. You can pause it and take a look in detail, but the main body of the video is a couple of spreadsheets that I put together to just break down exactly what I have made a driver with no experience coming into this. In his first, I got 21 weeks, I think, on the map so far. But here we're going to be talking about Maverick's pay in more general terms. So the base pay is kind of the main thing you got to look at when you're looking at different companies. Base pay at Maverick is now 52 cents per mile. Now this is worth spending a little bit of time on. When I first started, base pay for me was 45 cents a mile. I was hired on in February of this year and started driving in April. So I was making 45 as a USA driver. The guys driving regional were making 43 cents a mile. We got a 4-cent raise in June. I think it was like June 17th or something like that. And then we got another 5-cent raise just a few weeks ago. So, and actually, I got a 3-cent raise in the USA division. The regional guys got a 5-cent raise. So we are now, regional and USA drivers are now on par at 52 cents a mile for base pay. Now, the reason I think it's worth talking about the raises that we've gotten, they had another raise in November, I believe it was, of last year before I signed on. So that's a total of 14 cents in raises. That would have been 48 cents now to 52 cents. I'm sorry, 38 cents a mile they started at. So going from 38 cents to 52 cents in less than a year, to me that is indicative of a company that's trying to stay ahead of the game when it comes to compensating their drivers according to what their market value is. As I'm sure you have heard, there's a driver shortage, huge demand for shipping. The cost for shipping has gone through the roof. These freight companies are making a killing right now, and there are a lot of articles out there about how the pay for the actual drivers hasn't really caught up to the increased value, increased cost that these freight companies are incurring on their customers. And Maverick obviously is a company that is kind of setting the trend with their pay, and I mean, I don't see that trend stopping. I mean, I'm imagining we're going to be getting another raise here pretty soon. And I guess my point in saying all that is I'd rather be working for a company that's at the head of that trend than working for a company that's trying to catch up to it. So 14 cents in the last 10 months in raises ain't all that bad. 52 cents base pay. That is definitely a solid base pay rate. In addition to your base pay, when you're first starting out, again, if you don't have any experience, you're going to be getting 2 cents per mile performance pay. So these are kind of the 2 cent per mile payments that you're going to be getting. So you're getting a total basically of 54 cents per mile just starting out with no experience. And that 2 cent per mile, I haven't heard of anybody who's had that taken away from them. I think you'd have to do something pretty serious for them to snag something from that performance pay. It seems like it's a pretty sure deal that you're going to get that 2 cents. Now, by the time you get to 6 cents, I'm sorry, by the time you get to the 6-month mark, you're going to be getting a 0 to 6 cent sliding scale performance pay. And I'll do a separate video probably in October. By that point, I'll be getting my performance pay, that sliding scale performance pay. It's a little bit confusing to kind of break it down. I don't want to spend the time doing that here. But it's based on things like your average number of miles per day, your fuel economy, idling percentage, out of route miles, that kind of stuff. And so what we're going to talk about here, just for the sake of getting our heads around how much money you're going to be making, is we're going to just assume you're going to be able to make 4 of those 6 cents. All right, just so we can crunch some numbers. So you get a 2-cent raise to your base pay also at the 6-month mark. So base pay goes from 52 to 54 cents. And then as long as you're a solid driver and you're driving safe out there, you're going to be getting 4-cent performance pay as well. So that's jumping from 54 cents, the combination of the two, up to 58 cents with the combination of base pay and performance pay. Now I want to spend just a couple of minutes here before jumping on to all these other ancillary pay items. Just because when I first started looking at driving jobs, I didn't have any kind of context to understand what cents per mile meant. If somebody says they're working a job that pays $22 an hour, I understand what that means because I've got some context to understand what dollars per hour means. If somebody says they're working a job that pays $12.50 an hour, I know what that means. But if somebody says they're making 54 cents per mile, I'm not quite sure exactly how that translates. So let's just build this out here from cents per mile to an annual salary and just look at how much you'd be making per year, and then we'll break it down in terms of dollars per hour. We got 54 cents a mile. Now let's say you're driving say 2,300 miles. There's no way, I mean, you can drive less than that, I suppose, but that's a conservative number. Well, you'll be seeing in the next video how many miles I've been getting. So 2,300 miles a week is very doable. So we got 54 cents times 2,300 miles per week. That's $12.42.54, and we'll expand that out to a 50-week year, give us a couple of weeks for vacation, sick time, and that kind of stuff. That's $62,000 a year. All right, that's just starting out with 0 experience. Now at the 6-month mark, and we're going to say you're going to get 4 of those 6 for performance pay, plus your 54-cent base pay, times, we'll do 2,300 again, times 50 weeks. And now we're at $66,700 per year. So that's good money, folks. Just starting out. I mean, this is the whole reason that that I got this job. I mean, it was really working backwards from how much money you're able to make. I was looking for a job where I could make as much money as possible with the least amount of time and investment possible. Just basically the lowest bar that I have to get over to get into the job. And there are no other jobs that I can find that pay this well, this quick. You got 3 or 4 months of training to get your CDL and to go through the training and orientation and all of that at your company, and then you're out on the road making $60,000 to $65,000 in your first year. Now, if you're running harder, let's say you're making 58 cents a mile and you're able to pull an average of, say, 2,400 miles. That's $1,392 times 50. You're almost making $70,000 an hour a year. $70,000 a year. And that's not including all the ancillary pay. So we're going to get into all of that right now. So in addition to base pay and performance pay, which is your cents per mile pay, and I'm going to go through the pay that I am dealing with on the most regular basis down to the ones that are a little bit less common. So at the top of the list is tarp pay. This is flatbed, so you're securing and tarping your loads. And Maverick pays $25 per tarp, which is pretty standard. It depends on the load, but it's going to take 45 minutes to an hour and a half, depending on how wonky the load is. I mean, if it's something like I'm hauling right now, we've got some steel plates. Those are super simple to tarp. It doesn't take long at all, and they're the steel tarps, so folding them up isn't that big of a deal. But I mean, if it might take you 25 minutes to fold the tarps up, and 45 minutes to an hour and a half. I mean, you're making maybe $15 to $20 an hour all said and done with the tarp. It's not terrible. I know some of the dedicated routes at Maverick are $15 per tarp. There are other companies that pay $30 per tarp, but $25 I think is pretty standard and pretty fair. In addition to TARP pay, you've got detention pay. So detention pay is $15 per hour. The important thing to keep in mind with detention pay is it doesn't kick in until you've been sitting there for 2 hours. So my trainer, we'd pull into a place and we'd get stuck there for 4, 5, 6 hours, and he'd cross his arms and have this smug look on his face and just say, well, I'm just getting paid for doing nothing. And it never quite made sense to me, because when you factor in the 2 hours that you're not getting paid, say you sit there for 4 hours, you're getting paid $30 for those 4 hours. That's not that. I mean, even if you sit there for 6 hours, you get paid $60 for 6 hours. That's $10 an hour. So, and I don't know. We didn't actually crunch the numbers. The 54 cents, your starting pay, 54 cents per mile. If you're averaging about 50 miles per hour, which is when you're trip planning, that's kind of the rule of thumb is that you're going to be running about 50 miles per hour. You're making about $27 per hour when you're out there running. So you'd rather be sitting on your hands making $10 an hour out running, making $27 an hour. It's kind of a no-brainer as far as I'm concerned. So, it's better than nothing. But I'm always anxious to get back out on the road, even if I'm getting detention pay. Now, breakdown pay is also $15 an hour, but it starts as soon as you break down. And I think about this a little bit differently, because I think about it in terms of a driver who's an owner-operator. When they break down, and not only are they not getting paid, they're losing money because they're not running. They're perhaps breaking their contract because they're not going to be able to drop on time, so they're going to have to pay some kind of penalty for that, and they have to pay for the parts and the labor for those repairs. And so if I've got to sit there for 3 or 4 hours because I had a tire blowout, and they've got to get that taken care of, and I'm getting paid $60 to sit back and watch a movie. To me, I feel pretty good about the fact that I'm a company driver at that point. I don't have to stress about it. I just got to put in the right macros and just sit back and wait until they take care of business. So the other pay that I get a lot is because I'm a USA driver, I'm out. Stay out a lot. I stay out 3 to 4 weeks at a time. Is the weekend minimum miles pay. So they've got an 800-mile minimum pay guarantee for weekend miles as long as you don't go home. If you go home, that guarantee is null and void. But it's not unusual for me to get a 600-mile run going over the weekend. And not only is it pretty relaxed driving, but I get paid 200 miles that I don't have to actually drive. We also have a minimum mile pay for your runs during the week, 350 miles. So anything under 350. It's typically a bad day anytime you're getting a run that's 250 or 300 miles, especially if it's tarp, because you got to tarp it and then untarp it, hours later. And so it's kind of small consolation getting a minimum mile pay for that, but again, it's better than nothing. Let's see, we got breakdown, detention pay, minimum mile pay. Every once in a while you get a multi-stop load where you've got to either make multiple stops to pick up freight, or you've got to make multiple stops to drop off your freight. You get an additional $15 for those drops. If you're dropping in New York City, there's I believe it's $200 New York City pay. Now I just went to Long Island the other day and had to go through New York City, so I'm going to see if I can get some of that money. I'm guessing not. I think you actually have to drop in New York City for that to happen. And I think that's it. I think we just about covered everything. So, if you're just starting out and you haven't driven before and you are just getting your sense of the lay of the land and what this whole trucking world is all about, those are the kinds of questions that you want to ask different companies when you're calling to talk to them. What's your base pay? What's your performance pay? What's your TARP pay? I guess some other pay that's relevant here. When you come on board for orientation and training, you get paid $600 a week. I think the standard pay for most companies is about $500. So, and if you come with experience, it's $1,000 a week. At the end of your training, you also get an $800 student bonus. They split that bonus in half, so you get your first $400 when you drive off in your truck, and you get the other $400 when you drop your first load. That may happen in the same week, it may not. There were a lot of guys that were confused as to why they weren't getting their full $800 when their paycheck hit their bank accounts. So pay attention to that. Experienced driver bonus, I believe, is $5,000 paid off over 5 months, which is pretty nice. I had a guy try to recruit me onto his company a few weeks ago, and he said, "Yeah, man, we got a $10,000 sign-on bonus for experienced drivers." I said, $10,000. I said, "How long does it take to get paid that $10,000?" "Oh, this is about like 4 or 5 years." He said, "They get it to you though." So that's another question you got to ask. If I were you, I wouldn't be enticed whatsoever by bonuses. If you're looking at bonuses as an incentive to sign on to a company, you're looking at the wrong things. You really need to be paying attention to, aside from what the pay breakdown is, you got to be looking at companies that are going to treat you right. That's really what it boils down to at the end of the day. There are a lot of companies out there, from what I've heard, this is the only company I've driven for, but I've heard horror stories of companies who they just chew you up and spit you out. They promise you the moon when it comes to miles. They promise you the moon when it comes to home time, and then they don't deliver. And I guess that's another pay that needs to be put out here on the table is tuition reimbursement. The tuition reimbursement, they have 100% tuition reimbursement at Maverick. It's the only pay that they have that is just kind of, milked out over the course of, however long it takes to pay it back. It's $150 a month until you get paid back. So they kind of dribble that one out. But it's the only one that they do like that, and the fact that they pay 100% is, I think it's a pretty good deal. What made me think of that is a lot of times these companies, this is something else you got to be really wary of, these companies will offer to pay for your CDL schooling, and again, they promise you the moon, this huge song and dance about what you're going to get when you start working for the company, and then you get in the seat of the truck and they own you. They own you until they get paid back for what you paid for the CDL schooling. So you can't quit without some kind of serious repercussions. Maverick, I know, they've got 2 CDL schools that they work with where they'll pay for your CDL schooling. I would trust a company like Maverick. I just be really careful with that. If you can, pay for it by yourself. I realized after the fact, I'm from Michigan. I realized after I paid for my CDL schooling that there's a grant program in Michigan where Michigan, taxpayers basically pay for your CDL schooling. So just be really careful when you're looking at companies. I did a tremendous amount of research, and the pay was the main thing that I was looking at, and my benchmark was to be able to take home reasonably, have a reasonable chance of taking home $1,000 a week after taxes, after everything else is taken out. Take home $1,000 a week, which has definitely panned out. You'll see in the next video. And then to find a company that is going to have the feel and the kind of the moral compass of a family-owned company, a company that's going to be true to what they say when it comes to how many miles you're going to be able to get, when it comes to the home time that they're saying that you're going to get, and when it comes to how they're going to treat you. They treat you with respect and they treat you as a human being. And so far, all of that has proven to be true. So I'm going to move on to the next video here. If you are at all interested in Maverick Transportation, you're thinking about jumping on board and you're going through the application process, please put me down as a referral. I cut you in on my referral bonus. I cut you in a full 20% pre-tax dollars, so I'll cut you a check for $200. As soon as my bonus hits my account, I can send that to you via Venmo, via PayPal. I can send you a check the old-fashioned way, if that's what you would prefer. And I'll also, please send me an email with your name and either get your email address or your phone number, because I can put the referral in on my end as well. And once I've done that, if you're interested, I can give you my phone number as well. And if you have any questions leading up to orientation, if you got any questions going through training, if you got any questions in your first months out on the road, you can call me. I wouldn't say anytime, but anytime, say Monday through Friday, you know, after 8 o'clock, before 8 o'clock at night. I'd be happy to take your call and help you out if I can. If I don't know the answer, chances are I know somebody who does. So thanks for watching, and coming at you here with the video showing you all my pay stubs and just breaking down, giving you a real clear look at what you're going to be able to make here at Maverick. Coming up next. All right. See you there.